Hello and welcome to the Stillness Diet. This course will cover a range of activities to eliminate distractions in your life, artificial distractions, and deliver a still path for you to connect more deeply to your sense of self. My name is Amy Strauss. I'd like you to think of me as your resident intuitive. I do energy work near the DC area. And I came up with the Stillness Diet after a really rough postpartum experience with my child, where I filled my day with podcasts and social media and all types of things to distract me from being present in what was going on in my life. So I came up with the Stillness Diet, and I've been teaching it ever since. This is in 2017. I've been teaching this ever since. This is the only diet I would ever recommend anyone embarking on. And it allows and creates a path for you to be more mindful in your life. We're always lectured and told to be mindful, but no one ever tells you how to do it. And that's what I wanted to bring about with this course. So what do you gain by being still? Why should you give up your phone? Why should you give up this current lifestyle of just filling yourself with input? The first, I think, opportunity that you gain by being still is you're actually able to receive information, insights, and revelations and chance encounters. The reason people get great ideas in the shower is because they're not on their phone. They're in a different place, in a different world, a different mindset than you would be commuting on to work with your, with your nose in your phone or on your social media feed. So you really get the opportunities for chance encounter. Another opportunity, you feel more connected with the people in front of you. The use of smartphones and the use of social media is very self-driven. It's about you, right? By eliminating those distractions, it becomes about the people that are in your life, right? And you tend to create more energy and more focus towards those people, and that's a huge benefit. You're more present for yourself when you go through the Stillness Diet because there's no other distraction. You have to be in your body, right? So with that becomes a great opportunity of understanding how to be present here. And again, this is the only way I've come up with that helps me do that. I've tried everything. I've meditated, all those things. I think any one thing cannot be the silver bullet in being more present for your life. It has to be a complete lifestyle change, and this is one that works for me and might work for you. Devices and media serve you and not the other way around. You would not believe that this is the case, right? Because we all feel like, oh, well, my device doesn't own me. But see how we run to it when it calls, when the little ding notification comes up, all those different things. This switches the relationship around to say, this device serves me, not the other way around, right? And making that change will benefit you because, again, you'll have less wear and tear on your phone. You'll respect it a little bit more. The final area, and I definitely noticed this when I developed the Stillness Diet in the first place, was it just highlights areas of your life that need focus. Things you've been pushing down, things you've been squelching, things that you didn't want anyone to know about. All this comes bubbling back up to the surface because you are able to actually deal with them in a way that previously you were not doing before, right? You were just going on the social media just to forget about your life. But on the Stillness Diet, all that comes to the forefront. Let's talk about a course overview. I'm going to introduce you to the Stillness Diet, go through a guided meditation for you to understand why you're doing this in the first place, because that why is going to carry you through. The Stillness Diet is hard to do. Spoiler alert, it's hard because you are removing so many things that you use to numb and calm parts of yourself. And when those are removed, you can have a lot of, it's hard. I want to turn on a song, or I want to do this or that, and I want to multitask. And those things are no bueno on the Stillness Diet. We'll do an assessment so you can determine what areas of your life might need the most focus when it comes to stillness, and just have like a reflection. Again, we're not together in a workshop setting, but you can still have a reflection with everyone that has ever taken this course. And this is where my intuitive side comes out. Anyone that's interacted with this course has their own impressions about it, and that's really what that reflection is about. And then I'm going to close out. I'm going to give you some reading suggestions. There's certain books that you can read that can really inspire you and help you continue in on the process, because again, it can be very challenging. But now we finally get the opportunity to unveil what the Stillness Diet is. So this is what it is. This is what it looks like. There are activities that are in and there are activities that are out. And again, like I said, how much of it is in and how much of it is out is absolutely up to you. You will create your own stillness plan after this course and be able to stay on it as long as you need to get the results that you're looking for. But let's go over and talk about what's in and out. So First opportunity for in is monotasking. Monotasking is doing one thing and doing one thing well. We all know what multitasking is. We all love doing it. We're not as certain how productive our time is when we're doing it. So while you're on the stillness diet, you will multitask. You will not stand in line and text. You will stand in line. Or you will find time just to text. You will not be on your phone in the car driving to work. You will either be in your car or on your phone. Like no two things can happen at the same time, right? That's a guard. And the whole point of doing this is you're embracing being present in that one activity and not creating additional distractions or feeling like I just got to get this done, right? I really identifying that need and looking deeper into it. In creative pursuits, this can be hard, especially if you've, I don't know, north of 40 and the time where you really were creative or did creative things. Some people have to look back to grade school to find like, what did I actually like to create? But the good news is during the stillness diet, since you will have time on your hands, since you're not going to be on social media, watching television, or whatever the thing is for you, you will have an opportunity to regain parts of your creativity that maybe you are out of touch on, right? Maybe you're a writer and you stopped writing. Maybe you're a painter and stopped painting. It will bring you back to that ability to create again. What also is in is observations. Because you are not texting, standing in the post office line, you will observe in the post office line. You will observe the people around you. You will observe the clerks. You will observe the smell of the room and the feel, the warmth, the temperature of the area, the ice and the icicles outside. Like you're present and you're watching because there's nothing else to do. You're literally like being there in the present moment. By observing, you understand the richness of the current moment, right? That's really what we're getting at with observations. Meditation is totally in during the stillness diet. We'll talk about this later in the course. There's so many different things and ways to meditate. No one way is for everybody. It's one size fits all. No, absolutely not. Like you will be able to find a meditation that's right for you. We'll cover that later in the course. Mindful movement is in, which means mindless moving is out, right? It's all about understanding intuitively what the body needs to move and getting off the hamster wheel of like, I have to go to the gym or I have to do my run or there's no have to during stillness diet. It's all about removing the have tos and seeing what develops, right? So understanding how to move mindfully to be in the body is very important during this time. In is reflection. This can mean prayer to you. It can mean journaling. While observations is the sort of intake, reflection is really the outtake. What are you taking from the information? What are you taking from doing the stillness diet? In what ways is this benefiting you? That's all of what reflection is getting at here. All right, let's talk about what's out. Media, streaming, social media, news, books, whatever is on your list, podcasts, all these things are inputs, right? We want to remove those from the stillness diet as much as is comfortable for you. And again, the idea is to remove that outside input and allow the internal input to sing, right? What also is out is smartphone use, right? Of course, there will always be an element of use of these because we need them to do our jobs, we need them to pick our children up, all those things. But we're really going to put some boundaries around the smartphone use during the stillness diet. I hope you're excited. I hope you're not terrified by the time we got to the end. Honestly, the stillness diet is just a great opportunity to understand and present better ways of being your full self. And as we continue on to this course, you will learn how to do it. Hello, welcome back. So the first part of this course taught why we would even want to be still, right? What are the opportunities that we have to gain from the stillness diet? And we learned a little bit about what's in and out during the stillness diet. But before we embark on those concepts in detail, we need to figure out your individual why. Why? What is the purpose or point of you being still? And what do you gain from a sense of stillness, right? We can capture these two things in a guided meditation. For this meditation, you can be as comfortable as you like. You can stand up, sit down, eyes open, closed. Does not matter to me as long as you are in a place that you can focus on this exercise. You should feel free to pause this at any time and really spend more time with it, right? But right now, to get started, I want you to envision a ball of yarn. It can be any color you like. I want you to attach it to the base of your spine and allow that ball of yarn to fall all the way to the center of the earth. And I want you to feel it really thud in the center of the earth, like you're really grounded. This is called grounding. Now you're grounded, and I want you to envision in your mind's eye your day, a typical day for you. I want you to be as honest as possible. Think about how you feel when you wake up. Waking up for your day, how are you feeling? Is there a sense of dread? Low-grade anxiety? Are you happy? Go through the feelings, right, of that first emotion you feel as you open your eyes. I want you to take this further and go through the rest of your day. How do we feel making breakfast for the kids? Packing our lunch? Merging into traffic or getting on a train for a commute? What is going through the mind and the body? How are you spending your time? Are you listening to a book on tape? Are you listening to a podcast? Are you reading? Are you meditating? What is the activity that you pair your work throughout the day? Like, what are the matching activities, right? I want you to get a sense in your mind's eye of how much you are spending your time fully present and how much time is divided, right? How much time are we pairing? Are we getting dinner ready to a podcast? Are we listening? Are we helping with our daughter's homework while listening to a news show? We're not judging here. We're just observe your day in your mind's eye. How do you feel when you get home from work? Is there a sense of calm and satisfaction? Think about the happiest part of your day. What are you doing? What are you doing in that happiest part? And on the flip side, let's think about what we're doing on the day that we don't feel happy about, that we feel low-grade anxiety about. What are we doing? What are the activities that have followed that feeling? Your day is now over. How do we feel at the end of it? Are we staying up late and watching TV? Are we falling asleep in front of Netflix? Like, how does the day end? How are we ending that day? I want you to wrap up this day like a gift, and I want you to, in your mind's eye, put that up on a shelf behind you. Put that behind you, because that's behind. Now we will conjure up an ideal day. In this ideal day, you wake up and you feel whatever your ideal feeling is. Calm sense of serenity, relaxation, contentment. Are we rushing through our morning, or are we taking our time? Are we being mindful about what we put in our body? Is there exercise that happens? How does that feel with our body as we exercise? Are we meeting up with a friend? Maybe talking to another mom at drop off? Like, what's the social interaction look like? Follow this throughout the day. Feel free to pause this to reflect and think more about what makes this your ideal day. How are you feeling? How are you acting? Focus on the moods and what you're doing and how those things make you feel. This is your stillness ideal, right? This is where we want to get the sense of contentment and comfort in one's skin. I want you to put that picture of what you've just conjured up into a bubble in front of you. And I want you to give it a grounding cord, just like you gave yourself one. Just ground that down. And I want you to take an imaginary pair of scissors and snip that grounding cord. And I want you to watch that bubble float up. This is manifesting. Congratulations, you are all psychics, and you've just done, this is a psychic meditation to manifest your ideal day. We put our old stuff behind us, right? It's behind us. I want you to take that gift off the shelf and just let it fall into the earth, because that's over, right? We're going to bring a new sense of stillness into our life, right? A new sense of contentment. You have your eyes closed. You can open them now. Shake off this meditation. You can redo your grounding cord if you'd like. Just, we're done with that meditation. We're going to move on to the rest of the course. Write down this why. Pause this, write it down. You're going to need it to create your stillness plan at the end anyway. So just capturing what you want to change and why you want it to change is really important, because, spoiler alert, The stillness diet is hard to do. It's very hard if you've had a very addictive habit with phone use and media to go cold turkey, and lots of stuff likes to fill in that vacuum, right? So if you focus on your why, know why you are doing something, it can help bring you back in times where you really want to quit. I just want to thank you and congratulate you for getting this far and doing this meditation. In the course, as you continue on, we'll learn a little bit more about each area of the stillness diet, what is in, what is out, and then we will continue to build our customized stillness plans. So see you back here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Here we are back at the Stillness Diet course, and we are going to learn more in depth about several elements that are in the plan and two that are out. The first one is monotasking, and I would have to say that I get the significant amount of pushback on this one, and that is because we monotask throughout the day. Very rarely. we like to multitask. I love multitasking. It's one of my favorite things to do. Multitasking gives off the impression that you are getting more accomplished than you actually are getting accomplished. And monotasking feels very monotonous and really hard to do because we have to be present for this one thing, and it's just so easy to go off into another world, right? The reason monotasking is encouraged during the stillness diet is because it brings forward an emphasis on the present moment and a focus on the mundanity of life, which is your life. It really is going to be the moments that make up the most time are going to be the ironing, the brushing of the teeth, right? The chopping of the onion. The first exercise we are going to do with monotasking is to explore your current relationship with it. And then we're going to consider what it means to really remove multitasking from your vocabulary, right? Okay, so I want you to think of a typical day. We just did the exercise previously where we focused on the why. So for this one, I want you to, again, get in a comfortable spot. We're going to do a grounding cord again. Ball of yarn it, attach to the base of your spine, let it fall to the center of the earth. We're nice and grounded. I want you to now envision a typical day. Once again, but this time I want you to think of how often you are multitasking during that day. From the moment you wake up, is the TV going on right away? Is the radio on? Is there a music or podcast on while you get the kids' lunches together? Like, think about what that looks like throughout your day. Think about your commute. Is there music on? Is there a podcast, a book while you are in the car, on the train, whatever, what have you? What about during meetings? I have to say, I've not joined many meetings where people are paying attention, virtual ones. It used to be more obvious when we were in person, and now many of us are rocking the virtual life and are noticing that it's really hard to stay focused during a Teams or a Zoom meeting. What does that look like for you? What's hard for you to concentrate on? What about walks? I have my office is here, and I have a window right here, and almost everyone I see walking outside has headphones on or podcasts, little ear pods in. Is that you? Wrap up the day. Do you fall asleep to the television? Do you fall asleep to a podcast? Do you fall asleep to music? What do those multitasking activities look like? Okay, so now that we have our monotasking day, I want you to put this in a gift box just like we did before and put it on a shelf. Now we're going to transform this multitasking into monotasking. So I want you to do a bubble in front of you, and I want you to think about a new day. This new day is a monotasking day. So you get up, we don't reach for the radio, we get up and we think about how we're feeling. We're in our body. We go to brush our teeth and we don't look at our phones. We focus on brushing our teeth. I want you to sketch through the entire day. Feel free to pause this. You get out of this what you put in, really. So really think about what are those activities that are commonly done paired with other activities. When are you multitasking? And I want you to make this shift into the monotasking process, right? What does the commute look like, right? What about when the kids come home and they need help with their homework? What does that look like? Where's the focus? It's important not to overthink this and not to be too ambitious. We'll talk about that later when it comes to crafting your plan. Obviously, if you like watching your child's favorite movie every day before bed, don't stop doing that. That's great. But maybe stop also being on your phone while you're doing that, or also reading while you're doing that. Just focus on one thing at a time. Okay, so now we have our ideal monotasking day. We're going to do very similar to the exercise before. We're going to give that a grounding cord. Take a pair of psychic scissors. Mine are gold. We're going to cut that off, watch it float up. We've just manifested. We want to take the gift from behind us off the shelf, throw that into the earth. We're done with that, right? Okay, now that we've talked about what our monotasking day looks like, let's think a little bit about how we can set ourselves up for success. Because monotasking is one of those things where we say, yes, I'm going to do it. And then it's just like, wow, this is really hard. It's sort of like coming up with an accountability partner is one strategy, right? If you have a kid, they're built-in accountability partners. They get told what to do all day. You're giving them an opportunity to say, tell mommy when she's doing two things at once. They'll jump at that opportunity, right? So have an opportunity partner. Put a Post-it or a sign near your laptop to remind you to focus. I have this. I usually put it right here when I'm on meetings to make sure that I'm actually paying attention, because when I start to want to do other things, I look at my Post-it and I'm like, I got to go back to disabling other apps. Very effective. Use the technology to benefit you, really. There's so many ways to do this. Pick the slowest lane in traffic to really force this point for you, to embrace the task of driving. Pick the longest line in the grocery store to embrace the presence of waiting. Here are these opportunities. These are all strategies to really set yourself up for success when it comes to the act of monotasking. Okay, so now we've covered one of our first stillness activities. We've talked a little bit about why we want to encourage monotasking during the stillness diet. We did a guided meditation to come up with how we think your day is going to go once you've embraced this new skill. And we've outlined some strategies for how to monotask effectively. So in the next course, we will talk a little bit more about how we can use all this extra time that we got by conducting creative pursuits. I'll see you there. Welcome back to the Stillness Diet course. We talked about why we're doing this in the previous courses and how we're going to embrace monotasking. Let's get to the fun stuff. This is the fun stuff, right? Creative pursuits, finding your creativity. So during the Stillness Diet, you will have time on your hands. You will have time on your hands because you will not be embracing and enjoying as much media as you had done in the past. And we'll do some different exercises about that. But I want to focus not on what we're losing, but what you're really gaining. So in this time that you have, the idea is to fill it with creativity. And this is boundless and endless, and it really is totally up to you. The reason we do an exercise for it, though, is because oftentimes our creativity is an element of our lives that we have totally left as an afterthought. Many of us have left this in childhood and not retrieved it, our ability to create. If you have children, this exercise is going to be really easy because you'll just do what they do all day. It's a really easy shortcut. Like whatever my daughter is doing, I'll do it with her because I'm supposed to be doing creative pursuits. But we want to explore what you want to make room for the Stillness Diet. And I want you to think of a time, right, back in the day when you really enjoyed creating things. And this is it doesn't have to mean art. It can mean when you had a bug collection, or when you organized all your Legos and made a really cool Lego castle, right? So I want you to think about the following phases. I want you to think about early childhood, young adulthood, college years, and then adulthood to the present time. And I really want you to pause this and really focus and think. I'll guide you through a little bit, but take as much time as you need. In childhood, again, we're in grade school. What did we enjoy doing? Was there a marble collection we had, right? Or was it painting? Did we paint every day? Do a drawing for mom every day? What about young adulthood? What about this phase of life? right? We're getting older. Maybe pastels aren't appealing to us as much anymore. Maybe we're really into throwing pottery. Maybe we took pottery class in college or in high school. Did we make friendship bracelets, right, with our friends? Did we do woodworking at camp? What was young adulthood about? What about those college years? In college, what were those creative pursuits that we really enjoyed? Did we have time to take these electives? Did we like creatively throwing parties? Like whatever that thing is, like posters, like think of what that felt like, what you enjoyed, and write it down. Adulthood, if you're lucky enough to retain a lot of this creativity in your life, what was it? Did you take an oil painting class that you really enjoyed? Or were you sketching? Were you writing? Did you take a writing class? This exercise is really exploring what it means to build these activities into a stillness month. If you're doing a month, we'll talk a little bit about making this work for you and the time frame it works for you, but I usually recommend like about a month. Okay, so now we know how to find the creativity, but what are strategies we can use? So I've decided I want to do more art. I was an artist and I want to draw more. Okay, so then I need to have a pen and a piece of paper around me at all times, because the reason we use this phone so much is because it's really great for short-term tasks. Like I'm bored, I'm in a line, right? But if you're bored and in a line and have your notebook with you, bring the notebook out, make some notes, right? Or use that time for observations. The idea is not to replace the phone totally with another device that works just like a phone. The idea is to be comfortable with stillness and build in time to bring out your creativity, right? So have that notebook or sketch pad with you at all times. Last time I did this workshop, a young woman wanted to play guitar more. So I'm like, take that guitar with you everywhere, literally. Oh, I'm going to play a song, right? How fun would that be to be next to her in a post office? Okay, it's fun for me, it might not be fun for you. Another way to really embrace this is to practice the joy of using items from the past which are completely passe, like a typewriter, right? Using a typewriter to do your writing, A, will keep you away from distractions because you're not using a computer, but B, again, like it gets you back into that mentality of like just doing the writing just for the love of the writing. If you have kids, do as many craft and creative plays you can manage. I have my limits like this with anybody else, but I will just say it's really changed the relationship with my daughter when I do the Stillness Diet, because I'm present, I'm here to play with her. We play with pipe cleaners and we play with this and that, and it really gets me back into that mindset. Keep a recorder on you if you're musically inclined, or if you are a writer and you want to capture like words as you go, riff off lyrics that you think are interesting. The world's your oyster here. Like this is one of the most exciting pieces of the diet, because you're giving yourself permission to enjoy things that you once did maybe too long ago, and it's time to bring those things back in to the Stillness Diet. Okay, thank you for being here with me to talk about creative pursuits. The next course, we'll talk a little bit about observations and how to best bring observations into our life during the Stillness Diet. Join me there. Welcome back. If you've been with me thus far, you know that we've talked about how to be creative, how to be present, but we're going to talk about how to really observe. And this is all about mindfulness, that phrase that everyone uses and no one knows how to do, right? This is the easiest way I've come up with, really understanding how to enter into the present place, which is to be observant in the present moment. Okay, so cultivating a mindful approach, it's really going to help you be here now. And this exercise, I think, really captures a time in your life where you had this. So if you have a kid, again, you have a leg up because you've seen them develop and grow. When my daughter was very little, we would be walking to school, and this walk would take as long as it needed to take because she kept getting stopped by her awe. She'd see a mushroom and be like, a mushroom, mom. And I'd be like, wow, that's an amazing mushroom. We're late. Can we go? Right. But she was really in the present moment. If you've heard of the term beginner's mind, it just means that there's no association with anything that you are looking at it as a beginner would. And children have this intuitively. There are Zen masters and our guides. They interact with the world as a child does, without any suppositions or any assumptions at all. They just see it as it's coming to them. And it's just, again, you see this awe when you have a 2 and 3-year-old, and as they get older, that goes away a little bit. And then when you're really old, it really goes away. So the whole point is to get back into it, right? So for this exercise, get comfortable. Deep breath in and out. Okay, and I want you to ground as we did before. Ball of yarn, attach the base of your spine, make sure you ground. I want you to conjure up a time in your life where you felt you were intimately present. This could be an age, this can be a situation, right? Maybe you were sitting at church one day and you watched the light filtering down and you looked at it and you were like, that's really cool. You know, it was just a moment of intense presence, right? Maybe it was your wedding day, significant day, birth of your child. You were just wanting to just drink up every moment. You were just intensely present. How did that feel, right? As you think of this time, I want you to reflect on what else was going on in your life during this time. Sometimes moment of intense presence follow intense traumas. So this also might be something that triggers something for you, of an event in the past where you got into a car accident and I'm fully present now because this thing happened that sort of woke you up. So allowing those feelings to come through. I want you again to now remove your grounding cord, give yourself a brand new one, come out of your meditation. So write down, feel free to pause this and reflect, like, how old were you? What was the situation? I have some examples here, like, did you have a collection and you knew everything in that collection, right? Were you very aware of your friends and their clothing and their moods and their preferences? Like, were you that friend? Were you excited about how you present yourself and how clothing looks? Like, just again, think of that time and what it meant to you and how you felt, your feelings around that. And again, feel free to pause as we reflect on this and then go into some strategies, right? Because strategies are so important. We talk about, it's great to remember the time, but like, how are we going to do this? Okay, here's some good strategies I have for observations. Again, using your technology, making it work for you. I have an old school Casio. The good thing about these is you can set it to go off every hour. So as your phone goes off every hour, what am I doing? Moment to observe, right? It's sort of like that moment where you've been shaken up to be like, pay attention, what's going on? So setting a timer, using those reminders to observe what's going around you. Exploring the neighborhood with your child, practice seeing the world through a child's eyes, right? The easiest way to do this is to take your kid to school and ask what they're seeing, be there with them, sort of like, be in that mindset. Running an errand, but this time you're going to write a story about it, right? So have the intention of, as I run this errand, I'm going to write a comedy routine or a story about it. So as you go then, like you're looking at it as a journalist would, right? You're like, oh, this woman standing over there and she has this color hair, and this gentleman is upset because this can of soup was supposed to be $2.99, but really it rang up as $3.99, whatever. Like whatever the thing, like tell yourself, I'm gonna write a book about this. And then as you go through that experience, see how more accurately you observe something. Take an unusual walk or commute. Changing up the routine is very helpful because it instantly you're paying more attention. Don't use your GPS. Try to remember directions and then see what your observations look like and how they change. I will just tell you that one is so helpful for me. Just like not using that GPS, it forces you to pay attention. It forces you to be present. Pick someone in your household and in a non-creepy way, focus on them. Like, what are they eating for breakfast? How much sleep has they had that last night? Like really focus on observing them and giving them your full energy and your full presence. Here are just a few strategies for really entering to the observation phase of the stillness diet and really using those moments that we would usually reach for the phone to instead see what's going on around us. And lucky for you and me, there are plenty of opportunities for observations. It's just the question of removing ourselves from that artificial stimulus of not wanting to be bored, right? All right, we've got a few more to go, but observations, thank you for joining me, and let's continue on. I'll see you back here to cover different phases and approaches to meditation. Welcome back. Stillness Diet course. Today we're talking about meditation. This is one of the favorite ones for me to teach because there's so much misinformation about meditation. And this first activity is going to unpack for you all of the assumptions that you carry when it comes to meditation. So I define meditation, everyone has their own, definition. For the purposes of this course, since it's mine, I get to define it how I want. Meditation is a way of focusing energy on yourself. That's my definition of meditation, right? Even with that definition, we do this very rarely because again, when you're on the phone, that's energy placed on this, not energy placed on you. Energy placed on you could include going for a walk, going for a swim, putting on your makeup, grooming, taking a shower, getting ready, because you're putting energy on yourself, right? You're focusing on yourself. It also includes seated meditation, right? Where you are, for purposes of your meditative practice, you are not looking at anything. You are probably seated in a chair in a seated position or a lying position, or maybe you're doing walking meditation, and you are focusing on watching your thoughts and letting them go versus, going through an activity like a swimming or a walking would be. Maybe it's a guided meditation where you're listening to someone and they're guiding you through a practice. These to me are all forms of meditation, and it's again energy placed on self, right? Okay, so let's go into our own meditation, right? That's what these activities are all about. I want you to ground as before. Imagine a ball of yarn attached to the base of your spine, letting it fall to the center of the earth, giving it a little pluck. Deep breath in and out. I want you to think of what activities in your life right now you consider to be meditative. And again, I say you consider. Does this include putting on your face cream in the morning, right? Getting that ready. What about our walk to work? Is that meditative? Are we doing other things, or are we watching the breath? Are we watching the thought go by? What is that meditation? What about a swim or a bike ride? When we're sort of present in the moment, does that feel meditative for you? Energy placed on the self, right? In working out and movement, is that energy placed on the self? Getting up and watching the sunrise, having a activity where we do that. Feel free to pause this again. You get out what you put in. I want you to list down the activities that you feel like are meditative for you. I want you to, now that we're sort of writing this out, and again, feel free to pause, I want you to explore your assumptions on which of these count, right? So the issue I have with much of the meditation teachers is that one area or element of meditation is better than the other. They are not. Many paths. There are many paths. And as long as you are getting the desired result, that path might work for you. So let's talk about the different strategies. Come out of your meditation, do a new grounding cord. Okay, so here are some different strategies for you to play around with different elements and types of meditation. So breath meditation is one of the most simple meditations there is. It's just counting the breath, right? You can even do this before you go to sleep, right? Some exploring the different types of meditations. There's mindful meditation, being present for what arises throughout the day. There are so many guided meditations, apps and YouTubes. But I think the best strategy that I can present for you today on the topic of meditation is really to find what works for you and do what works for you. I will just share a little bit of my practice because I think it's instructive here. So again, having issues with stillness before and being on the stillness diet, for me, it was really about seated formal meditation. And the seated formal meditation was really an approach for me to really double down on areas or elements of my life that I thought were sort of getting out of hand. I also used this time, the seated formal meditation, to do reflection as well. So there is a meditation on me, but then I also sort of opened myself up to, my own spiritual process where I'm also sort of reaching out and having that connection as well. So it works for me, sort of having this seated meditation, a formal meditation. Also, as an energy worker, it has to be part of your life. Or many, I've noticed with many energy workers, it's really, really encouraged because if you're working with other people's energy, you have to make sure that you're clear, right? And meditation is one way to do that. And there are guided and visual meditations that really help with that. So the idea is not to make you sit down or go to a silent retreat or anything like that. The idea is to Figure out what activities you use that focus energy on you, and write this down because it's going to be part of your stillness plan, and it's going to be something that you're going to invite in and gain a lot of insight from. So meditation should not be feared. You absolutely already do it. It's just about understanding the areas that you do and the activities you do, and think about what you might want to explore as the Stillness Diet goes along. All right, stay with me. In the next course, we'll be talking about mindful movement. Welcome back to the Stillness Diet. We are going to be talking about mindful movement in this section of the course. A little story before we dive in. So prior to the Stillness Diet, I was a constant mover. I walked all the time. I didn't have a Fitbit, but I was if I didn't have at least an hour of walking a day, I would be really anxious. So you can imagine like how skinny I was and just how like miserable I was to feel like you always have to move to get your mind under control. But that's really where I was at. Stillness Diet happened, ended up, having to enter recovery, and movement was off the agenda. We were not allowed to move because my body was healing, and exercise was just not part of that. So, and it wasn't part of that for about 3 years. It took 3 years of resting and very short walks to be able to be fully healthy enough to exercise again. So for someone who had exercised a lot, that was so traumatic. Can you imagine if you're just, think of the person that has to run and then all of a sudden there's a foot injury and that person can't run anymore. The benefit of going through the Stillness Diet is you understand the role of movement in your life, and you're able to create other opportunities to calm and still yourself without having to kill yourself at a gym, go for a 5-mile run every day, like whatever that thing is that you have to do. You're released from that because you understand how to be still without having this repetitive movement in your life. So mindful movement, I call it energy in action. Movement without intention is just as addictive as smartphone use. It just is, right? It's that hamster wheel mentality of like, gotta go, 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 go. So in this exercise, get comfortable, eyes closed open, seated, standing, however you like. I'd like you to ground as before, ball of yarn attached to the base of your spine, nice ground. Deep breath in and out. I want you to conjure up a picture in the ways that you move in a mindful way, right? Now we're focusing on connectedness, right? So think of when you shower or when you pick up your baby, right? When you bend down to tie your shoes. That's what I mean. Mindful movement, when we're walking a dog, right? Focus on when you feel connected and in your body. Stretching. Stretching is such a great way to make that connectedness. But again, stick with you. What are the things that you do, right? Currently, right now. Deep breath in and out. I want you to think, and again, explore how you can incorporate more movement during this routine. How can you bring in more mindful movement in January? You might be thinking of a stretching routine. Maybe there's a yoga class you wanted to take. Hold on to that thought. Give it a grounding cord as we've practiced before. Give it a little grounding cord, all right, front. Psychic scissors, chop, chop, let that float up. You just manifested some mindful movement for you for your Stillness Diet. Strategies. Try an activity that's always appealed to you, but you've never had an excuse to do. Ballroom dancing, drumming, axe throwing, whatever that thing is. If you have mobility issues, right, think about breath work. Think about, like, if there are other things you can do, even if movement cannot be a huge part of your day. Think about eye exercises, right? There are endless amount on YouTube, you guys. There's just endless opportunities for this. Another option or a strategy is stopping an activity you've been doing for a really long time or very mindlessly. So if you're always a runner, take a month off. I know certain runners are like, never. Trust me, I felt that way too. Think what it means for a person so addicted to exercise to have to quit for 3 years. Very hard. But you identify other activities that you can do, right, that establishes that connection. Another option, again, if you're not a big exerciser, go outside every day and put your actual bare feet on the ground. This is another approach to grounding, similar to the grounding cord, that really makes you feel embodied into the earth, right? Or mindfully observe the body during a meditation, right? Tai Chi, a lovely way to really feel like we're in the body. So here are a few strategies for you if you're thinking of how to, improve your mindful movement during the stillness diet, however long you practice this for. Here are some areas and strategies for you to continue moving mindfully, because again, you're going to have time on your hands. So think of a way, a new strategy, a new approach, write it down. You will need it for your stillness plan at the end of this course, and meet me back here when we talk about reflection. Hello and welcome back. We are going to talk a little bit about reflection. So we've covered observations and being more mindful. We've covered meditation and focusing energy on the self. But reflection is really where we make sense of all of those sensations. And if you've gone this far on this journey of the stillness diet, you know that there is going to be a lot that needs to be addressed during this process, because you are removing artificial input from your life and you are now in your space. And when you're in your space and you haven't been in a very long time, sometimes there's some uncomfortable things that come up, and reflection is where we make sense of all of that. So again, stillness, deep reflection on an area of your life you'd like more attention. So in this exercise, comfortable spot, breath in and out. Grounding cord is before, ball of yarn, touch the base of your spine, dropping to the center of the earth. We are going to, again, eyes open, closed, just make sure you're comfortable. I want you to think about what question you have for your life at this moment. And I want you to be open to whatever immediate response comes in. Some might instantly see a picture, right, of maybe you with your child. I want to be more present with my child. You might see an achievement you're hoping to get once you have more time to work on it, like a college degree, or I want to spend more time with my dog, whatever that thing is. Like, don't judge it, let it come in. And as it comes in, grab a pen and a paper and write it down, because here are the areas that you're being urged to look into further. And they're going to be different for everybody, right? So as these things come in, and in a non-judgmental way, I want you to psychically bring one forward. That just means visualize or feel, right? If you're not a visual person, bring forward the number one thing that you really, really want to, maybe it's tied to your why. You really want to focus on this. This is extremely important to you. Bring that forward. I want you to hold it in your hands, in your psychic hands. Really think and focus on this thing. And as before, I want you to ground it, ball of yarn, right? Let it drop to the center of the earth. And I want you to take a pair of scissors and just snip that. Let it float, right? Let it float up. Now I want you to remove your grounding cord, give you a brand new one. And I want you to think and really reflect here on how you are going to get the types of things that you're looking to get here. How are you going to be able to reflect? In what ways is that reflection going to benefit you, right? Now, this can include journaling, prayer, therapy, coaching, whatever. Just start lifting ways where you think, this process would benefit me. This process I like, or I've been curious about, and I want to use it in my life more now. Feel free to pause as you write those things down. And we're going to talk a little bit about some strategies. So many different ways to reflect and so many different methods to establish that connection. Contemplative prayer. If you have any religious tradition, this is going to be an easier section for you, just because there's so much built into religion in terms of ways to commune, right? So contemplative prayer is one of those things, having this open-ended dialogue with a higher power. And Lectio Divina, divine reading for the Catholics among us, opening up a book or a Bible, whatever, and focusing on that phrase, whatever phrase sort of jumps out to us. Rereading old journals, emails, or text messages here. Nonfiction books can be really helpful to provide structure if you're looking to do like workbooky type things, right? Which you shouldn't, absolutely is something that you can invite in. You can make an altar in your house, encourage a creative pursuit plus a reflection and use that altar, create a ritual for it. You could set aside structured moments of your day, morning, noon, and night over your meals, have that moment for reflection. This is a very effective strategy because it builds it in according to your routine, right? So here are just a few ways or strategies for how we reflect, right? We talked about why it's important. We talked about different ways and mechanisms for you to bring an area of your life into focus that you want to come into focus. And the how is really based on what you think is going to work best for you. Thank you for joining me for reflection. Stay tuned when we talk about how we're going to remove some of the digital input in our life. Thanks. Welcome back. This is where the rubber meets the road on the Stillness Diet, because we're going to be talking about media. And it's time to turn it off because it's here. Stillness Diet is all about exploring your relationship with a media-rich environment. That's one way of putting it, right? Okay, so this is not going to be a guided meditation. This is going to be something you pause. And as you pause, I want you to write down all of the media that you intake throughout the day, starting from your text messages to your phone conversations to your Netflix to your podcast to your, write it all down, books, email, social media, list it all, because this is all going to be stuff that we look at and we really reflect on during the Stillness Diet itself. Once you've done that, if you've paused me, unpause at this moment and determine which one. Now, you might not want to pick all of these things, right? When I first did the Stillness Diet, I was a very cold turkey approach to it. I very much wanted to jolt myself into it. And to do that, I really needed to take a break from a lot of the media. But just because that worked for me does not mean it works for you. And I would say if you're a first timer doing this, starting small is probably a really good idea. So maybe just starting with one thing, like, I'm not going to read this news site every day, or I'm not going to use my text messages from the time of 8 p.m. onward. Start small and pick that one thing. You really want to determine and circle out and set a boundary for yourself with respect to media. Again, you don't want to overwhelm yourself to eliminate everything. I think the best advice I can give you here is you'll know what becomes or is becoming an issue to you. And if you don't know what it is, you should ask someone close to you maybe to observe you and say, like, what do I seem addicted to that you think I could maybe step back away from? And usually the answer comes like that, right? Okay, but how, again, strategies for turning it off, because this is hard to do, right? We live in this media-rich environment. It's so difficult to step back from this. Okay, one strategy. I do this. I only read the news that's relevant to my industry. So work in a very targeted industry. It's very easy. There's trade news, and I just read that news. I didn't read any other news. I have never not been up to date with world events because people tell me about them, and I learn from talking to other people. So setting a boundary also is an effective way here. So maybe you can listen to podcasts if you're monotasking. If you're just like old time radio, like sitting there, turning the podcast on and listening while you're doing nothing else. Maybe that's a boundary you could set instead of eliminating it entirely. But really determining, going to the root of what makes you feel the worst, I think is a good strategy too, because not naming names, there was a news site I was obsessed with. I would join it every day, multiple times a day, and just seeing what the new articles were. And I always feel icky after. And I finally realized that this was a correlation. I'm like, I don't feel well after I'm on this site. And then I was like, you know what, if I don't feel well, why am I looking at this, right? So look at where you're on the internet, people who scroll e-commerce a lot, or I just want to look at eBay. How does it make you feel when you're done? Maybe pick the one thing that makes you feel ick and just eliminate it and let that be your stillness diet, right? Social media, right? Explore unlimited input. Maybe curate who you follow. Maybe don't eliminate it entirely. Maybe make a requirement you can only look at it when you're at your desktop computer. These are all really effective strategies for creating inventive boundaries for how you're going to engage in media during the stillness diet for however long you do it for. Again, don't try to swallow the ocean here. We've got so much media in our lives, and a lot of it brings us a lot of pleasure, right? So if you feel like this newspaper that you read every day is not an issue, then it's not an issue. But if you want to explore what it is like to remove everything, that's a valid experience as well. So that's media, strategies for media. We talked a little bit about media-rich environments and what your media footprint looks like. And we've also discussed some strategies for how you're going to treat media during your stillness diet. Meet me back here when we talk about digital wellness. Get your phones ready. It's this time in the stillness diet that everyone dreads, but I love, and that's because we are going to look at how often we actually use these things. So during the stillness diet, phone use is discouraged. It's not saying you have to eliminate it, it just means it's discouraged. And phones might be a big issue for you, might be a little issue for you. I'll just say as a caveat before we jump in, this device was engineered by the same folks that engineered slot machines. So it's not your fault that they're very addictive, right? It's not your fault at all. I feel like we'll look back at this phase in our lives and it's like back in the 19th century when they put like codeine and morphine in medicine, and we look back now and we think, oh my gosh, that was so irresponsible of people to do that. But it's like they didn't know. I feel like it's going to be the same. We're going to look back and be like, how did we like unleash all this addictive tech? We'll be like, we didn't know. We were just introducing it, right? So that's with that caveat. This exercise is meant to educate you on how much you use your phone. Now, if your functions or settings on this were not set to capture digital wellness, you might not get a lot of content or information, but you can still estimate how often you use your phone. You can even track in a day, just like mentally track how much you're using it and like write it down. But for those that have been tracking their digital wellness, use the instructions on the scene. Go ahead and pause this and come back when you had a little snapshot of how often you use your devices. All right, I'm assuming that you've done this, you've paused it, or you've sketched it out, and now you have a sense of how often you're using these devices. We are not judging here. That's not what the stillness diet is all about. The stillness diet is about, and again, inviting in stillness and saying goodbye to our official input, right, of which the phone is, right? All right, so now that you know how you're using your phone, that will help you shift this work to the other activities that we talked about before. While you're not using your phone, you might save, if you look via week, like how much do I use my phone in a week? It might be a lot of hours. In a day, you might have 2 hours on your hands. How are you going to fill that time? How are you going to fill that time? Well, let's talk about strategies too, because strategies, we can all say we're not going to use this, but when it comes to actually not using it, it's really hard not to do it. Okay. I know this sounds crazy, but turn off your phone when it's turn it off. Like you can turn it. A phone that is off, it's just, for whatever reason, it's just easier to swipe than it is to turn it on, have it load. I don't want to wait for that. It's a great strategy to use. Put a rock or a penny or even a pen on top of your phone. There's something about having to remove something before you use it that creates like this blocking mechanism, right? The strategy of making something inconvenient, right? Create a math problem on your lock screen. If I did this, I would probably never be able to use the phone again, so I don't do that. Set times to use devices. That's what I do. I have a morning, noon, and night. So morning, noon, and night, I'm checking my text messages. Obviously, phone calls can come through at every time, but people don't really call anymore. If you notice, they sort of text. Create rules for notifications. Use the technology to work for you. Like set it up so you can let this thing tell you when you can use it. There's so many different apps for focus is one that just like make sure that you can't use certain areas of your phone for a certain amount of time. So strategies are endless, but the goal is to use the phone less and have that device or technology work for you. Stay back here when we wrap all of this up and talk about how you create your personal stillness plan. Welcome back to our stillness course. This is where the rubber meets the road, where the fun begins, because we've done all this work thinking and talking about different areas and elements of stillness and how we're going to bring that into our lives, how we're going to remove artificial input, and now we are able to create the plan. So this exercise takes around 20 minutes, so you're going to want to pause this and use the time to fill it out based on that general amount of time. Use the prompts or guidelines that we covered before in the stillness course, and we're going to use the workbook on the next slide to really call out and highlight areas that you want to focus on. So just a reminder, that includes limiting things like media and the smartphones and inviting in things like monotasking, creative pursuits, observations, meditations, mindful movement, and reflection. Remember, going small is better than going the whole enchilada. So much better than trying to do something super ambitious and then not being able to get it done or ending in just a flurry of frustration. So this is the context or the categories for your stillness plan. You're going to start by filling out the why. Why are you embarking on the stillness plan in the first place? Remember our guided meditation and the image you created. Pause this now and write out your why. Meet me back here when you're done. Okay, now come back and talk to me about what you are choosing to invite in during the stillness diet. What things, activities have you written down throughout the process that you want to bring in? Pause this, meet me back here. Okay, so we've talked about why you're doing this. We talked about what you're inviting in. What are you going to limit? Now is the time. Use the opportunity to hit pause and talk about what boundaries you're creating around media and smartphone use. What strategies are you going to use for it? Hit pause, meet me back here. Okay, the length of time. Let's spend a little moment talking about this. I think the length of time is related to how strict you're going to approach the stillness diet. If you're going to go whole hog and you want to cut out everything and invite everything in, I advise doing stillness diet if you've never done it before for a week to start. If you are going to go moderate approach, I think you can plan for like a month of going on a diet. And it's a diet, right? So again, like we'll talk a little bit about what the plan looks like moving forward into the rest of the year. But take a time now, think a little bit more about how long you want to stay on the stillness diet for, and then meet me back here. Okay, so you have your plan. We don't have a plan. You have your plan. Now let's talk a little bit about how we move from that plan. You made it. Welcome, you're here. You've reached the end of this course. This last slide is a way for you to think about how to conclude your journey with the stillness diet, because once you're done with the experience, you will re-enter the world. So this quote is from Autobiography of a Yogi. Solitude is necessary to become established in the self, but masters then return to the world to serve it. How will you come back to serve the world after this experience? I will tell you that after years of doing the stillness diet, I usually do it every January. After years of doing it, I always live my life a little differently after. That incremental approach, I think, is much more realistic than a Band-Aid type approach, which can crash and burn a little bit, especially if you've been really strict with yourself on like media and media-rich environments. I think a nice way of establishing boundaries is probably the way to go. So that's what I will share with you. Give some time to this once you are done with your stillness diet, and think a little bit about how you want to come back into the world. It's always a good option and always a good approach to be mindful about how you want to end even before you begin. This slide and the next is really just a wrap up. Here's some suggested readings that I think are fun to read during the stillness diet or to like encourage you and revamp you. Anything by Eckhart Tolle is amazing. Michael Singer is awesome. If you want to get into tarot and different contemplative spiritual practices, I listed those as well. Different psychic development opportunities and just cool Zen readings. These are my favorite books that I go to and I touch base with yearly, annually, and highly encourage them for you as well if you're interested in reading more. Please stay in touch. Here's how you can find me on Instagram and TikTok, and always send me an email if you have any follow-up.